Hello, I'm David from Barclays.
He's lying.
I'm currently in the process of upgrading your account.
No, he isn't.
So I just need your full password.
No, he doesn't. It's a scam.
Once I've got that, I can send you a link to access the account.
That's also a scam. Every year, millions are lost to fraud. At Barclays, we'll never ask for your full password or PIN, so never give it out.
Thanks for your time.
At least that's true.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello. In this Moneybox podcast, disabled people fear they may be excluded from a £150 discount off their next winter fuel bill after the rules change later this year. The woman appointed to advise the government on how to end fuel poverty gives Moneybox her first interview. And if you have the money, there are 2 weeks left to top up this year's tax-free cash ISA. But is it a good idea? But first, Graham thought he was investing in cryptocurrency when he contacted a firm he found on the internet. He was fed up with poor returns on his savings and hoped to use it to help buy a home for his son. But he ended up losing his savings, his car and his house as thieves stripped him bare. Dan Whitworth's here. Dan, give us some background.
Well, Paul, I've worked with you and the Moneybox team for 3.5 years now, and sadly I've come across dozens, if not hundreds, of cases of fraud. And I have to say, having spoken to Graham, his family and friends for the last few days, this is the most comprehensive and devastating fraud I have ever reported on. It started last August when Graham was looking around for a better return on his savings. He came across a company online called N Capital, which has since disappeared, which was offering to help people invest in cryptocurrencies. Now, Graham's a widowed 77-year-old, but he's also served 22 years in the RAF and retired as a squadron leader, so he felt he knew what he was doing. Now, he started off investing a small amount, but was told the more he invested, the better deal he'd get.
How much did he put in to start with?
Well, it started off amazingly with just £50, but the next day it was £10,000, and in just a few weeks, Graham had been groomed by the criminals so completely he'd put in well over £100,000 worth of savings. Once they cleared him out of cash, they got him into tens of thousands of pounds worth of debt and had ruthlessly exploited him for every penny he had at his disposal.
And did the fraud stop there?
No, it didn't. And bit by bit, the criminals pulled him even deeper into their web. Now, they did this by convincing him there was a problem with the company he'd invested with, but that a second man, who called himself Jeff, could help him get all his money back and even make money on his original investment on top of that. But they'd need more money to do it. And so Graham, increasingly frantic to get his money back, was pulled even further and further into the fraud. In Graham's desperation, he ended up throwing more good money after bad.
A desperate story indeed, Dan. And as Graham told me when I spoke to him and his daughter Liz on Friday, he was suspicious, but that wasn't the end of it.
I began to fear that maybe there was a problem with this particular company and that I was not being given good advice. But at that stage, I had kept all of this investment to myself. I hadn't even told my children. I don't have a partner. I've been widowed now for 17 years. With lockdown and being stuck at home and all the other things that have gone on the last couple of years, I very much worked alone in the house.
So you'd run out of savings, you'd borrowed, I suspect, probably as much as you could. Was that the end of it?
No, because Jeff then said, look, because there's more money required, I would like you to obtain equity release on your house. We need between £300,000 and £400,000 to do this.
You'd borrowed £400,000, you'd spent all the money that you'd had, you'd taken out loans. Did he ask you for more money?
Yes, he wanted another $280,000 because of the loss in value of Bitcoin. But then to sell the house totally, which I was very reluctant to do, you can imagine that. Why would you want to sell your house? And he kept telling me, look, don't worry about it. I have got a team. I will buy your house back, and also you will get your full return, which was going to be valued at something like £1.4 million, something like that. I reluctantly agreed, very reluctantly agreed to sell my house because I wrote a long email to him expressing my concerns about saying it was a case of, I love my house. I've been in the house since it was built in 1990. My late wife and I raised our children there, our 2 boys anyway. So I was convinced, utterly convinced, that this guy was telling me the truth. He sent me an email back, calming me down to say that don't worry about it. You will not only get your investment back, but you'll get your house back the day that the house goes on the market. I will buy it straight back. I have a team who will do that for you within a few days.
So you had used all your savings, you'd borrowed or had borrowed for you tens of thousands of pounds, you'd sold your house. When did you finally realise that something was terribly wrong?
Well, it all came to a head on the 8th of February when I tried to contact Jeff, because that was the day that he was supposed to have purchased the house and I should have had my investment returned in full. And I could not raise him. And then I had a WhatsApp message from his PA who said, Jeff's had a bad car accident and he's in hospital. And I thought, this has got to be a total fraud. It all came to a head at that stage. I thought, oh my God. I became very concerned. I was very frightened at what I'd done. I began to feel like a total idiot. I was very ashamed of myself. I hadn't told my children. I'd basically given away my whole life to this individual. And I pulled all the blinds and curtains down of my house. And my neighbor saw, she's a good friend, and she saw what I'd done. And she rang me up and she said, Graham, what's the problem? And she came over to my house. And then my son came and it all broke, and I admitted what I'd done. I was a complete, utter mess. I could not believe what I'd done. I'm 77 years old. I'm a mature man. I have fought in 2 wars. I have had a commission in the Royal Air Force, 22 years. I have flown around the world. I have operated around the world. I've lived in many countries. I have experienced death. I've experienced awful tragedies. And yet I have made this gross, terrible error of actually giving everything away to this fraudster. And I'm utterly appalled that I'm actually talking about this right now. It's very, very difficult to explain and to come on this program and break down like this. I'm so sorry.
Graham, don't apologise. Graham, take a short break because I'd like to talk to your daughter, if I may. Liz, you're there.
Hi.
This is where the family came in at that stage when your dad realised what had happened. What did you think when you heard of it?
Everybody was in complete shock. When something like that lands on you, you just don't know what to do. Once we sort of got over the initial shock, we needed to basically form a ring of steel around my dad. He's lost everything. These people are like thieves, but they're worse. To me, they're like murderers because they are actually killing somebody's future life. And it's not just the one person, it's the ripple effect that it has on the victim's family. So the key thing for us was to be there and support Dad. His mental health was our most important thing. And then from that, we had to go straight to the police. Listening to my dad speak now, I have been crying. It's awful to hear the story again. We needed to get him to help us to help him and sit down and go through it in as much of a factual way as we possibly could. And we've made contact with as many of the agencies and banks and people involved that we possibly can.
And Liz, what's your message to people who are listening?
The main reason we have agreed to do this is because I really hope it makes people so aware of what is out there. These people are awful. They have turned so many of our lives upside down. It's like we're living a different life since the 8th of February. I cannot tell you how overwhelming and how much this has taken over the family. So I would just like everybody to be fully aware of the evil people that are out there and how easily people who don't believe they are vulnerable can so easily succumb to this and be groomed by these people. It is heartbreaking, and I do not wish this on absolutely anybody else.
Liz, ending that interview with her and her father, Graham. And Dan is still with us. Dan, how much in total did Graham have stolen?
Well, Graham told us he lost nearly £800,000. Now, the vast majority of that money was transferred out of two accounts, one with Santander and one with Barclays.